do with that whatever you want, but that was rather interesting. We're now joined by the head football coach of TCU, Sonny Dykes, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Sonny, thank you, Coach, for being a part of the show. How hectic is it after the last games, and especially with you at a new program, even though a familiar program, the travel, the recruiting, the different places, the dinners, the banquets, and all that stuff right now?
Yeah, it's really hard to describe it. There's so much going on in today's world. You're trying to recruit the players on the team that you just became the head coach. You're trying to recruit high school kids. You're trying to hire coaching staff. So there's a lot of really important things happening all at once. It's an exciting time, but it's a hectic time. And, the good thing is I think we've accomplished a lot of our goals that we set out to accomplish. I think we hired a great staff. I think that we're making some inroads in recruiting, and I think our current players are getting to know us a little bit the best that they can while we're here, and we look forward to being here and being able to spend some time around our players.
What was the biggest draw to TCU for you to move across town?
Well, I think the big thing is obviously the Big 12. Just being a chance to know you're going to have an opportunity to get in the college football playoff if you win the conference. Or have a really good year. I think that's one of the things that I think any coach wants to have an opportunity to compete at the very highest level and recruit the best players and play the best competition, and just felt like a chance to be in the Big 12 was a great opportunity. Obviously grew up around this league, at Texas Tech for a long time, 7 years as an assistant, and, my dad being in the league when it kind of became the Big 12, and, just to have a lot of respect for the Big 12 and what it stands for, and the coaches in the league and the institutions in the league. And, for me, it was kind of where I always wanted to coach, and it was exciting to have an opportunity to do it.
What do you kind of view the Big 12 as is now? I mean, for so long, it made its bread and butter on being the conference that didn't play any defense. At least nationally, that's what we always heard. And then the SEC copied the offenses, and now it's like the coolest thing in the world. But a lot of defense is being played in the Big 12 right now, especially this season. Just how have you seen it kind of change over the last couple of years, and what do you think of kind of the look of the conference moving forward?
Yeah, I think it is interesting. I do. I know when I was at Texas Tech, it was, we kind of came in the league, and I was fortunate enough to be with Mike Leach and some of those really bright coaches that we had on that staff then, and changed the league in a lot of ways. When we got in, it was kind of an I formation league. Everybody ran the ball. And then we kind of started to open it up a little bit, and everybody began to do that. And then about, 2007, 2008, 2009, then every game was a 47, 45 or 42, 41 or whatever it was. It seemed like a shootout every week. And you can see that it's like everything else in football. It's starting to become a little bit more cyclical. And, you look at the teams that played for the Big 12 championship this year. I believe it was the two best defenses in the Big 12 this year with Oklahoma State and Baylor. And so, I think it does go to show you how important it is to play great defense. At the end of the day, defense is always going to give you a chance if you can play great defense, a chance to win every time you take the field. And that's what you want to have as a program. You want to have an opportunity to be able to win that game no matter what, no matter who you play, no matter what happens. And if you play great defense, you can do that. So, the league has changed. If you look normally, again, there's been so many great quarterbacks that played in the league. This year, not as many as older, experienced guys, a little bit more of a younger group of quarterbacks. And I think as a result of that, the defenses seem to have the upper hand this year. And, that's always fluid. Those things change year to year. But as I said earlier, if you're going to win this league, you better play defense.
You have pieced together a lot of your staff, not all of it. I think there's still probably some openings, and if I'm wrong, let me know. But there's some names. I covered Malcolm Kelly before he was at Oklahoma, and he's a great player at Longview. Tell him I said hi. Smokey said hi. Obviously, Samples, Kaz Kazadi, a great strength and conditioning coach, among others. How difficult is that? Is it like a chart where you have certain names for every position, and you just kind of got to go through that like a puzzle?
Yeah, I think in some ways I was lucky. Kaz and Rashad were both with me at SMU,
Sure.
So those were easy. Rashad's such a good recruiter and does such a great job of, identifying with our players and being a role model for those guys. And then Kaz, I think Kaz is one of the elite strength and conditioning coaches in college football. So those two guys were with us. And then, Malcolm was here at TCU, and and heard great things about him and got to know Malcolm a little bit. Was fortunate enough to get him to stay on and continue to coach the outside receivers for us. And so then what you have to do is you got to go hire the best guys you can hire and try to, to balance the staff out. You want to have, some young guys that really enjoy recruiting and are eager to make a name for themselves in recruiting. And then you want to have some older guys that have experience and have been through some battles. And then you have to figure out a way to hire those guys and create a culture where they work well together and all those type of things. So, putting a staff together is kind of a difficult art in some ways. It's kind of a balancing act. And then especially in today's world, there's so much movement in college football, being able to hire somebody and then retain them is not easy to do in some cases. And so, things changes all the time. I still need to hire 2 coaches. I think I got a pretty good idea who I'm going to hire, but as we get down the stretch here in recruiting, it's going to be important to get that staff finalized and finished out.
Is it more difficult recruiting high school players or recruiting your own roster when you get to a new place?
I think both. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, as you said, that's the first thing you have to do. When there's a coaching change, there's obviously a lot of uncertainty. You have young people that have, decided they wanted to come play for a different coaching staff that maybe had a different philosophy and ran things differently. So what you got to do with those guys, you got to sit down and make sure you do a good job effectively communicating, this is what our program is going to look like. This is what we're going to be about. This is what's going to be important to us. And if you feel like that fits your ideals and your goals and kind of program you want to play, well, then stay here and help us win championships and help us, build this thing. And if those two things don't align and you don't identify with those qualities and characteristics, then you might want to move on. And that's kind of, what we're doing right now, getting to know the current players some. Our strength and conditioning coach, again, Kaz, had about 3 days to work with the guys to see where we are just as a program and, see what our attitude and work ethic's like. And so it's been good. It's been very productive. The rest of us have been on the road recruiting, banging our head against the wall, trying to find as many good players as we can. And so it is a very hectic time. So you spend all day on the telephone, either talking to recruits or talking to players back here in Fort Worth. So it's a hectic time for sure.
Sonny, there's discussion about the early signing day that's created maybe a lot of the early change during the season, mid-season in college football with coaches. Do you like it the way it is now with the early signing period? What would your suggestion be?
It's hard. The mid-season, coaching changes, I don't think are good for the game. And certainly, what happened this year, in our situation was some of these jobs that made sense, for our coaching staff, opened. We're at Texas Tech and then TCU. And then all of a sudden, there's a lot of conversation about this coach is going to leave or this guy's going to go there. And, it's really creates a tough situation for the coaches and in particular for players. And really that's what this whole thing is about, is the players. And so, it's not any fun to go through that when there's just a lot of talk and a lot of speculation. And, you have to be truthful with your players all the time. You got to tell them what's going on and what your situation is. And it's hard. I mean, that's a very, very hard thing for young people to deal with. And it's certainly not a great situation. So I'd like to see if they could maybe, change push the signing day back a little bit. I think that, I think it was a great idea. I understand why they did it early. But I think when that happened, all of a sudden, athletic directors felt like they needed to make these changes quickly so they could go hire the coach that they really wanted to hire. And, that created some really bad situations for coaches and, like I said, more importantly, for players.
You were at SMU and had the great run, and it didn't end quite the way you wanted. With all of the speculation, do you feel like the way you handled it with SMU and waiting until the very end was the way it should be handled?
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, when you coach that team, you sign up to coach the team, and I think that people think that you're working behind the scenes and all this, and you're really not. I mean, you're trying to, you owe it to the players to do everything you can to try to win every football game, and our staff did. Everybody worked incredibly hard, and it's unfortunate, like I said, the way what comes out in the media sometimes isn't always completely true. And all of us, the coaches, the players, everybody poured everything we had into trying to win as many football games as we could. My goodness, you invest your whole life into an institution, every minute of every day, is designed to put those players in the very best situation you can put them in and try to win as many games as you can. And again, you do it for the players. And so when something like that happens, I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's hard for everybody, and it's not a great situation, and creates a lot of anxiety and uncertainty, and it's not ideal. But sometimes it's what happens, and you gotta figure out to try to handle it the best you can.
You coached Tanner Mordecai, and what a year he had, and we covered him when he was at Midway and obviously came into your place from Oklahoma. Can you look back and discuss him and what he did, how he improved, and how he fit your system the way he did?
Yeah, he had a great year. I mean, he really did. He, the thing that I loved so much about Tanner, he came through the door and just said, "Hey, look, I want to compete." Didn't want any promises, just wanted an opportunity to compete for the starting job. He came in, he rolled his sleeves up, he went to work from day one, learned the system. The good thing about Tanner was he was in a system very similar at Oklahoma. Garrett Riley, Lincoln's brother, is our offensive coordinator, and what we do and what they do is very similar, a lot of the same terminology. So it was an easy transition for him. He had experience, seeing things and had the same kind of philosophy of coaching quarterbacks and playing quarterback that he had at Oklahoma. So that helped. And he transitioned very fast. I mean, he just came through the door. He competed hard. He did a great job of taking care of the football. And he hadn't played a lot of football in college, and you would never know that by the way he played. He just, played with a calmness and a confidence that was really fun to watch and fun to be a part of.
Have you ever met a more serious young man than Tanner Mordecai?
Yeah, he's pretty serious. Yeah, he doesn't. It's funny. I would try to joke around with him in practice, and he would look at me like I was crazy sometimes. He's like, "Hey, just leave me alone. Don't talk to me. Don't distract me. Go away." I would try to lighten it up a little bit. He wouldn't have any part of it.
Sonny, if you don't mind me asking you this as well, you know that the Big 12 will expand at some point in 2023 with the 4 schools. You were just at a school that has been a part of the discussion about maybe even further expansion with the Big 12, where you're now at and locked in with TCU. Do you feel like SMU is ready for that move to be a Power 5 program?
Yeah, I do, without a doubt. I mean, I think that, what's happened is the program's gotten better. I think every coach been there has improved it. We felt like we improved it. The commitment has gotten better. I think everybody at SMU realizes how important it is to play big-time college football and what it would mean to the university to get in the Big 12. So I think the investment from them will certainly happen. We've got a great administration at SMU, a fantastic president, a great athletic director, and I know they're going to do everything they can to position SMU in the best situation, in the best way that they can. So I'm optimistic that at some point they're going to get in, and I certainly hope they do. They deserve it.
Coach, were you on staff with Dave Aranda at Tech?
I was, yeah. Dave was a graduate assistant when we were there. Yeah, we had a great staff. I mean, you go back and you look. I mean, it was a fun group of coaches, and Dave was a GA there. Yeah, he did a great job. Yeah,
I mean, you got Biedenbaugh and yourself and Aranda and a ton of other guys. Your thoughts on just seeing the young GA? And we know he's not the most talkative. He's gotten better just in the last year. I can only imagine what he was like back then, but to see his growth and to see what he's done now as a head coach through his first couple of seasons, just curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know Dave's. I don't think Dave's changed much. I mean, he was very serious as a young guy back then. Really thoughtful. Was always one of those guys that didn't say a whole lot, but when he said something, you knew it was well thought out. Had a plan for everything. You could tell that he was going to be a different guy. If you go back and you look on that staff, I mean, Dave was a graduate assistant. Lincoln Riley was a student coach. Biedenbaugh was there. Dana Holgerson was the inside receivers coach. Art Briles coached the running backs. I coached the outside receivers.
Jeez.
Ruffin McNeil went on to be a head coach, was on the staff as well. Cliff Kingsbury was a quarterback. Graham Harrell was a quarterback. Sonny Cumbie was a quarterback. All those guys are, either NFL head coaches or college coordinators. And a lot of the guys, Wes Welker now is a wide receiver coach for the 49ers. I mean, there's just a lot of guys that got into the coaching profession that were there. And it was a fun time to be on that staff, and Mike Leach was great about, letting everybody kind of share ideas and talk. And it was a really, it was a special group of people to be around. And a lot of guys went on to be really successful. And it was a fun time. It really was. And as I said earlier, we were kind of at the forefront of changing college football in some ways, just with air raid and what was going on, and it was really a fun place to be.
Hey, Sonny, congratulations. You've always, we've had you on before. We had you on a couple of times, even during the summer and also during the season. Good luck. Are you having fun? I mean, is this newness of it? I know you've been in coaching, but are you having as much fun as you could imagine right now?
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. I mean, I think TCU is a program that has huge, possibilities, and I'm really excited to be here. I love the people that I'm working with. I'm really enjoying getting to know our players. I just think this place is really a special opportunity. So, I'm excited every single day I come to work and optimistic about where we're headed. We got a long way to go to get there, but I know we have a chance to do it. And so really love being here. Fort Worth's a great place to live, and excited to get my family over here and get everybody settled and hit the ground running.
Thanks for our time during the busy time. Appreciate it. Thanks, Coach.
No problem. Yeah, it's good to talk to you guys.
You too. Sonny Dykes, head football coach at TCU, replaces Gary Patterson after, 21 years there as a head coach. I think it was 21 years as the head coach, one of the longest lasting tenures, Kirk Ferentz among one or two others, and he takes over going from a team that beat TCU. Remember that story in part of the meltdown of Patterson when SMU won that game, and now he's the head coach at TCU. It's 5:16. We mentioned Baylor had a couple of commitments, future classes, a couple of young men from a program that has great